Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Ram Skinny here on the LAFB Network, your destination for Los Angeles sports. I guess I was trying to say we are your what is my new tagline? We are Los Angeles sports. There it is. I'll get it eventually. Been a lot of traveling and whatnot, so my head's a little out of it. But thank you all for hanging out with us. Tough Rams primetime game. 37-20 bludgeoning at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles. May have not even been that. I mean, 17 points is pretty much a blowout, but may have not even felt that close at times with the way the game was going. So we'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit more big picture. And obviously, with the holiday coming up and root everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. And then, we'll be back Friday for our preview of where the Rams can kind of go. But we'll talk a little big picture, not just be all doom and gloom after a tough loss. But first and foremost, did you just get a haircut? Skinny T, what's up, my man? How we doing?
I did. Yeah. Yesterday, got my hair cut for the holiday.
I know you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You got to be fresh for the holidays. You can't go in there with shaggy neck hairs at all. Yeah. I was going to say, you got your hairs cut too.
Yeah. Chrome dome looking good over here. I don't know if you were laughing, but I took your response to me kind of laughing. I'm out in Colorado and we were recording this because I was out decorating the house with my dad to beat the snow coming in. Like, that's something you don't say in LA, but I was like, hey, I gotta push our recording because I'm helping my dad put lights up before the snowstorm comes in. So yeah,
I was so jealous of that. That just sounds like a perfect way to spend your afternoon. So I'm glad you got to do it.
Yeah,
I'm over here holding down the fort for the rest of us.
There you go. Me and you talk all the time. Like, I love living in LA. I love the weather. But it's nice in the holidays to be able to come back to Colorado, where, for those that don't know, my folks are from. I grew up here, and get that snowy, Christmassy holiday feel for a week or two in the holiday season, and then go back to the nice 60s and sunshine. So it's perfect. It's great. You can't ask for more.
Love it.
But everything's good otherwise. I guess we won't talk again until after Thanksgiving. So let me just start with this. Any big Thanksgiving plans? And I'm put you on the spot. We didn't prepare this, but what's one or two Thanksgiving traditions that the Andersons have?
Yeah, so I just had a whole group of family descend upon our household here. I had 5 people. I was hosting 5 people. So we're keeping it pretty low key, going over to a friend's place. We're going to play some board games after we eat lots of turkey. And then we have a little bit more family coming in. Just had brother-in-law and nephew come in, so from the other side. So
nice.
Yeah, it's not as low key, but the tradition is we go get the Christmas tree after Thanksgiving on Friday, set that up on Black Friday. So we'll be doing that in the morning. But yeah, Thanksgiving, it just kind of, less about the traditions for me than let's say like a Christmas or something like that.
Yeah, same here. This is the first Thanksgiving since I've been married to my wife or dating that we've been back in Colorado for Thanksgivings. We usually always come Christmas, but it's like, there's only 3 weeks between the holidays. So it makes no sense to come to both, especially with work and whatnot. But this year we had like some miles. We're like, oh, we've never gone out here for Thanksgiving. We always spend it with her family out in LA. So it's like, oh, let's do Thanksgiving and then we'll see if we can come back Christmas. But because of that, the only real tradition I think that I've kind of upheld since being a kid is every Thanksgiving Eve after we eat, we always watch Miracle on 34th Street. That is our Thanksgiving tradition. No matter what, we watch Miracle on 34th Street we watch the newer one. I know that's blasphemy. Everyone likes the original. We watched the newer one. But ever since I can remember being a little small kid, we watched it every single year. So and I've brought that to my family now with Monica and Mia, and we watch that every Thanksgiving too. So that's our one tradition.
I love that. Yeah, I'm just a few movies into my Christmas movie rotation. So
there you go.
That's definitely on my list. Though. That's an every year watch for me too.
Yeah, classic. Can't beat it. So one thing we need to do, obviously not this year because I'm out here, but moving forward, we'll be in LA most Thanksgivings, is we need to start an LAFB Turkey Bowl, because I miss when I was growing up here in Colorado. When you're a kid, I think everyone when you're a kid, you play the Turkey Bowl, right? You go out and play football with your friends in the yard or whatever, meet at the school field. Then you get older and, we're getting older anyway, but then your friends just are farther apart. And so I haven't done that on Thanksgiving in forever. And I would love to start an LAFB Turkey Bowl, whether it's just the LAFB fan, but also inviting any listeners. Like, how fun would that be? We got to start that.
That'd be a blast. We could turn that into we could host that at the Rose Bowl. It's right in our backyard. Let's do that.
Heck yeah, let's turn into a whole on tournament. So so next year, 2025 Thanksgiving, everyone that's listening, mark this down: the LAFB Turkey Bowl happening on the 2025 Thanksgiving. So we're gonna make it happen, Skinny T.
Yeah, I don't know. My other nephew, my 9-year-old nephew, was in town last week, and we played a little bit of baseball, and I was so sore the next day.
Oh.
I'm of true coaching age. There are coaches that are younger than me in the NFL now. I was looking at the oldest players in the NFL. There's one that's older than me. Aaron Rodgers is younger than me.
Is he really?
Yeah, 6 months or so.
Wow, you look younger.
I've had an easier life.
You look younger, you got a younger spirit. So yeah, that's good. I still don't, and I would love not love, I'm not going to poll our listeners, but I would bet many of our listeners do not think you're as old as you are. Cause I never did. I still don't believe it when you tell me your age. I'm like, I don't believe it.
I don't either.
So yeah, like I think people probably assume I'm older than you just by looking at us. They probably think I'm older.
Maybe. I don't know.
Last story, and then we'll get into, I promise, I know we get comments every show, like, just get to the Rams talk, but we're catching up a little bit. So right after this, we'll get into this Rams game. But maybe people don't want to hear about Rams because of how bad it was. But when me and my wife started dating, I was 24. My wife, Monica's older than me. She was 27. I've always thought I looked pretty young because I used to have hair too. I wasn't always bald like this, but I always thought I looked like, especially if I shave, like I have a real baby face. But for whatever reason, my wife's family thought I was 35 years old. Wow. Dating Monica. And I was like, first of all, I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult. Like, when you're young, when you're that like 18 to 24 as a male, like you don't want to look like young. You want to look older, like prestigious. And so I was like, oh, I'll take that. Whereas now I'd be like, you thought I was 10 years older than your daughter? Like, come on. And I was younger. Anyway. All right, let's get into the show. Well, I guess first brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag. All the best lines, money lines, spreads. I don't know if you want to bet on the Rams the rest of the season. I do think they're going to still win quite a few football games and make a run at this thing, but I don't know if I'd be a betting man on them. But hey, every team, every sport, every game is available at BetOnline. Where the game starts, tell them the guys at the LAFB Network sent you. That's betonline.ag. All right, Skinny, 37-20. May have not been that close. Unfortunately, hate to, I'm not trying to be that pat ourselves on the back kind of thing, but our fears of what this game was going to go really came to fruition in terms of we knew the Rams run defense was not good, and it looked better because in recent weeks they'd played not good running teams. And so that was kind of a false prophecy or a false hope or a false positive, whatever you want to call it. We were worried facing a really good run team in the Eagles, it would get exposed. It did. The Rams offensive line has been good in moments, but it has not been consistent throughout the season. They were playing against a good defensive line. We were worried that would get exposed. It did. And so unfortunately, the fears we had going into this game kind of all came true. So I'll ask you just as you're watching this game unfold, was this oh crap, where's this team going? Or was this this is what we've known all along. They're just actually playing a team that's going against their deficiencies.
Yeah. I went on a Eagles radio show ahead of the game, just a little pregame thing. They wanted to ask me, and the first question they asked me is this Rams team exactly what their record says they are? And I said, yeah, they are. They're a 500 football team. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to win some down the stretch. I think they're going to lose some down the stretch. But, I was, those were the two units that I was looking out for. We know what Matthew Stafford can do. We know what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are. We know what this Rams secondary is. But we had the big questions about how good is this defensive line? How good is this offensive line? Those were the two units. And, I had questions going into it. They didn't prevail. Now the Rams or the Eagles offensive line is one of the best in the league now that they have Jordan Mailata back. Mm-hmm. But the Rams or the Eagles pass rush has not been one of the most dominant ones. It's not this team is built from the back end forward rather than in the past. We saw these Eagles teams just devastating pass rush. That's not the case this year. So this, I'm coming away looking at this offensive line going, are they going to be able to get it together soon enough before the end of the season? I've pointed out a couple of times the Kyren Williams effect in the pass blocking game. Another 14 snaps as a pass blocker. Still leading the league, still extending his lead in that snap count. So they're just needing a lot of help. Trying to protect Stafford for sacks. And I know Havenstein wasn't in this game, but these things happen. There can't be this kind of fall off. Everybody else is healthy. They could have Jonah Jackson in there, but they misplayed that.
Yeah. That's a sad thing.
Yeah. It's a $51 million mistake that they made in free agency. I didn't want to come across as a negative Nancy on this, or come across as like a Eagles fan. But if you want to go to other sources that are wearing rose-colored glasses to tell you about this Rams team, those places exist. I can find me on Twitter, and I'll send you to those people who are going to kind of blow smoke up your nose and tell you that everything's going to be just fine. This is a 500 football team. We thought top end where they're going to get to 10 wins. I said at times maybe 8, maybe 9, and I still stand that. I think they can get to 10 wins, but they got to have some things go their way for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Well, and you made a really good point there. Like, this is a team in this game that on offense was only due to health, only missing one starter in Rob Havenstein. The offensive line was healthy. You mentioned Jonah Jackson didn't play because that was a mistake. He didn't play well, but they're only missing Havenstein at the right tackle. Kupp, Nacua, obviously no Higbee, but he's been out all year. So he's been on PUP since last playoff. So we can't really count him as missing starter. They knew that going into the year, that was going to be the case. And on defense, they were fairly healthy too. Obviously you're still missing, on the back end help with safeties and whatnot, but linebacking core was safety. The defensive line was healthy, not safety. The linebacking core was healthy. The defensive line was healthy. The secondary was primarily healthy, minus, a few guys here and there, John Johnson specifically. So this was one of the healthiest this team has been, and just got the doors blown off them by the Eagles. Now, the Eagles, I think, have proven, even though they've been heavily criticized all year, they've proven they are a true Super Bowl contender. And so the Rams clearly are not a Super Bowl contender. That doesn't mean they can't still squeak into the playoffs. And the ones you're in, you never know. I mean, that's the beauty of the NFL is, you can have a team or two in each conference that is that much better than, say, the 6 or the 7 seed. And then once you're in the dance, all bets are off and you never know. As this team is right now, which has kind of been our thing all along. Like, me and you, I think, have been fair in the sense that we're not looking at like what this team can be. We're looking at what this team is right now. This team right now is not a true contender. They're just not. They don't have the rush defense. I mean, the Eagles completely showed you the game plan to not just beat the Rams, but dominate the Rams. The Cardinals showed you in week, whatever that was, 2 or 3. This is what the Cardinals did. Obviously, Marvin Harrison went off in that game as well, so they had a good passing attack, but they showed you the blueprint of really what to do. And so everything that, not just we, but every criticism of this team up to this point, there's really been no changes. They're healthier now. There's still been no changes. You look at their rushing offense. And again, I know they were down, but they weren't down really big until later in the game. And, you still only 20, not even 18 carries total. If you include one from Stafford, 17 total, 16 for Williams, 1 for Corum. And so still you're not like establishing that run. And that, the passing game was fairly efficient. Nacua 9 for 117, Kupp for 8 for 60 with the touchdown. But you're just one dimensional, and Vic Fangio and that defense knows what you're going to do. And when they know that, you're just not going to be able to, or let me put it this way. When they know what you're going to do, you see instances where it seemed like every critical down and distance, then Stafford was sacked for a big loss. I mean, how many times, Skinny, did we see like, okay, they're moving the ball, great. They have a bad first or second down and then sack for 12 yards back to the 50, either out of field goal range or just a 3rd and long, then that you have to kind of compute. So it's just too predictable what this team is. And until they can flip that predictability, this is a 500 football team, and they may end the season 9-8.
Yeah. And I think that, McVay should watch a couple of games. This one he just coached in, and then last night with the Chargers and the Ravens, about how to operate a successful running game. They've got a good running back. We know this. We've seen what he can do. I've said since the beginning of the season, this team is going to go the way of the offensive line, and you guys start putting it in Kyren Williams' hands more to break up that predictability. If you get a team with a couple of good corners, I'm getting off my point, but you really shut down Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. You got to look to Kyren Williams. And were there negative plays for Saquon Barkley in this game? Yeah. Were there negative plays for Derrick Henry last night against the Chargers? Yeah. But what did they do? They kept giving it to one of their best playmakers, and they ended up breaking some plays. And I think, just looking at this offense, Kyren Williams is one of their best offensive weapons, and they're just they're not going to him enough. And I've pointed out they need him in the pass blocking quite a bit, more than any other back. But I mean, there's going to be negative plays. But when you have a back like Kyren Williams, and people have already forgotten, he's really good when he's got the ball in his hands. And maybe it's an offensive line thing, and maybe that's just it. But I'm leaning to it as a problem that McVay just, it's like a couple of negative plays, and he just backs out completely. And talking about Saquon, 9th best single day rushing performance of all time, best in the last 15 years. Nobody's only the Colts running back Jonathan.
Jonathan
Taylor came close to that a couple years ago, but the best in 15 years. One of the best performances from yards from scrimmage performance, and they knew what he could do coming into it. Both Stafford and McVay said they were trying to prevent Saquon Barkley, but he was just inevitable. And you look back to the Seattle Seahawks game, and it seemed like with Kenneth Walker, there were a couple instances it seemed like he was going to break a couple of big runs, and they were able to prevent him, get some hands on the ankles there. But Saquon Barkley is just a different beast. So it's it was just rough. It was rough to watch. And
you made a good point there on feeding. Like, you have to feed your best players. And we know Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are not afraid to feed Nacua and Kupp. Like, they will target them, just pepper all. And even if it's not working, just keep peppering. Even if there's 5 straight incompletions, keep peppering, because they have confidence those are their best players are going to make a play. Kyren Williams, I'm not saying is on the no, I will say he is on the equal playing field of those two in terms of game-breaking ability. Obviously different position and whatnot, but he carries enough weight in the offense that when he is really getting the football in his hands, this offense can do really special things. And looking at Saquon Barkley's career, and I'll go back even to Penn State. I don't know how much you watched him at Penn State, Skinny, but at Penn State, and for sure in the beginning of his career at the Giants, there were times when he would run the ball and he would have like 14 carries for like 30 yards. Like, he would just be getting stuffed. And if he was in the McVay offense right there, pull the plug, knock in the ball again. But both Penn State and the Giants, for all their horridness in the early part of his career, they would still keep giving the ball. And guess what? Almost every single game, he'd have that game-breaking 60-yard touchdown run. And his stat line ended up being 19, 20 carries for 180 yards and a touchdown. But it's because he had that 1 or 2 breaks, even when all the short yardage stuff, because how many times have we said running the football keeps the defense honest, forces you to tackle, forces you to hit, forces you to keep people on the line of scrimmage. And so eventually when you keep doing that, you're going to break. Kyren Williams, and again, I mean, the stat line, 16 for 72, 4.5 yard per average and a touchdown. It's not like that's a bad stat line, but if you keep peppering, you're going to get that break eventually. Now, the problem, Skinny, and this brings me to my next point I want to ask you, and why I think we've been continually bringing up the whole thing with Blake Corum. Kyren Williams now has 5 fumbles on this season. He had 3 all of last year, which is still a lot for a running back. Has 5 now this year. As good as he is, fumbles are game-changing plays. And so do you think there is a I don't know, fear is the right word, but for some reason, even when he fumbles, McVay will put him out there, but won't give him the ball, but won't put Blake Corum in the situation. So, I mean, there's something there that's not, whether it's trust, whether it's they were just down losing, but we've seen other coaches, running back fumbles, okay, he's done for the game, but that doesn't mean you just like in the run game. You just have your next running back come in and you start getting carries. So it's not really a fair question to you, but I guess if you have a comment on that, just your thoughts on like 5 fumbles, still plays, but they punish him by not giving the football, but then they just abandon the run altogether.
Yeah, I think they're in this position in a lot of different ways, but I think, you know, you've got high end talent and you've got developing guys that they're betting on, you know, taking big steps forward. And, you know, I've said it before. I think that probably Blake Corum is just not meeting the moment in terms of his pass blocking ability. That's the only thing I can fathom. The reason that he's only getting, you know, 1 or 2 carries every game, when, you know, heading into the season, it seemed like the plan. And I'm not just, you know, pulling this out of nowhere. You know, Sean McVay was saying that they drafted him because he's almost a kind of an identical, you know, size, weight, and style of runner as Kyren Williams. And the only thing I can just imagine is he's just not up to speed enough to that McVay trusts him to meet the moment as a, you know, a regular or, you know, guy in pass blocking, or it could be a running thing too. But I mean, that's the only thing I can really fathom, is that he just doesn't trust him. And in response to that, I would say, put your guy in that position and let him prove you wrong. Yeah. McVay has been proven wrong in instances like that before. So let's see it. I mean, we got to see something different out of this offense. You know, he you know, anytime he's asked about, you know, what's happening in the red zone, what's happening on third down, which they're terrible at both. You know, he's execution. We got to go look. We got to go back, look at the tape. Execution. You know, and it's like, what are you looking for on the tape? you know, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I mean, you know, Higbee's window's just been open. He's got 21 days to return to the active roster. You know, he's always been huge on third downs and in the red zone, but you know, I said it last year. Is this team a Kyren Williams away from the offense turning around? And that was true last year. Is this a Higbee away from turning things around? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, and hey, Greg Dulcich is out there now.
No, he just got signed. The Giants just picked him up.
No, did he really that quickly?
Yeah.
Wow, must have been busy hanging Christmas lights, I guess. So, well, never mind. Yeah, and you know, defensively, I think this is who they are right now. Like, we knew this was going to be a process. We knew they weren't going to be good against the run. They haven't been good against the run. They're going to have their ups and downs in youth. So now, that being said, anytime you give up, you know, 255 yards on 26 carries to one singular player, I don't care what you're going through growing pains wise, that's a bad game. So that's when I think you just chalk it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, an interesting stat I saw was Jalen Hurts only attempted 1 pass beyond 20 yards or more. They ate everywhere, you know, in the intermediate range, short to intermediate range. And, you know, they were picking on Christian Rosebroom. They were picking on Omar Spates. Spates has done a really good job for an undrafted rookie, but, you know, there's just a lot of liabilities in coverage up close, you know, in that second to intermediate range that teams can just take advantage of. And AJ Brown had a good day. I know Saquon's the big headline for sure, but you know, even without Devontae Smith, they were able to just continually move the ball. Jared Verse's worst performance, just one. He had one pressure, but it was an incredible pressure. Knocked Jordan Mailata on his butt.
Yeah.
And that was it for the rest of the day. For him, Braden Fisk had a few pressures as well. So, you know, not everything was terrible on defense, but you know, you go a couple of weeks playing a team like the Seahawks, whose offensive line was cut down by injuries, and DK Metcalf didn't play in that game, I don't think. And then you go to, Miami, who didn't have a great offensive line. Then you go to New England, who doesn't have a great offensive line. It starts to look like your defensive line is a lot better than it actually is. And then they play an elite unit, and you see, good, but not great, and still improvement to be had there.
Yeah, still a work in progress. And, it's bad when I didn't even know Kenny Pickett was on the Philadelphia Eagles. I totally forgot about him, former Pittsburgh Steelers draft pick. And he came in at the end of the game because it was such a blowout that we saw Kenny Pickett on the field, small hands Pickett out there. But one last thing, and then maybe we talk a little big picture and wrap this up. Nick Sirianni, for all his faults, I don't want to sound like I'm getting too heavy on McVay, but I mean, we talk about all the time, right? Like, he's so smart that sometimes he like overthinks things, and just like, you can see, like, I don't think me and you are the brightest. You're smarter than me, so I'll give you more credit, but I don't think we're like the football geniuses, but you can tell what team's weakness and a team's strength. And you would say like, hey, we should expose the weakness. Clearly Philadelphia, who is a running minded team regardless. Obviously, that's why they went after Saquon. That's why Jalen Hurts has a lot of carries each game. But there's games where he'll sling it over the yard. They've got a great receiving core, and too. I mean, it's just Howie Roseman's one of the great GMs in football. It's just a well-built roster. But clearly they saw this Rams defense cannot stop the run. They ran the ball 45 times, and 26 of those from Saquon, and obviously he had a career historic game, but still had Kenneth Gainwell involved with 5 carries. Jalen Hurts carried the rock 12 times, and then I don't really count Pickett's 2 at the end of the game, but 45 carries to 22 passes, and as you mentioned, all those passes were to the short and intermediate variety. They put together a game plan knowing exactly what the weakness of this Rams team was, and they not only exposed it, they executed it to a fault, and that's why they partially dominated. There's been too many times where we've seen, and I think we know this defense that the Rams is facing is not good at this. Let's see if the Rams do that. And they don't. They just stick to their normal formula of offensive play calling. And that is where I think we get where we get critical, I guess, is like, we know McVay is so smart and genius. We know how good Stafford is. We know how good Kupp. Their offense is relatively healthy again, and not saying that the Eagles had a necessarily weakness to expose in this game particularly, but if you're a Rams fan and you see what the Eagles did on offense, that's what you want to see the Rams do against teams that they can expose. And so going the next week, can that be an adjustment that we see from McVay, and then saying like, okay, what is the weakness? How do we expose that, instead of just saying, this is what we're good at, and so we're just going to keep doing this and hope it works? Because that seems to be the formula now that they've tried through 11 games, is this is what we're good at offense. Even though this wasn't what we built the offense for in the offseason, this is not how we constructed the roster, but this is what we've done for 9 years here. And so we're going to keep doing that. That is the maturation. I don't know if maturation is the right word. I mean, McVay's been coaching long enough, but that is the evolution of the 2024 season I think we need to see.
Yeah, and it keeps coming down to this for me, which is, what is the identity? And it's true on both sides of this. It's and we'll just stick with the offense just because it's a little easier to pick on in this moment. Is who are these people? It's Puka Nacua now at this point. I mean,
yeah,
the Kupp had a fine day. He picked up a touchdown and some yards in garbage time. But I mean, even those two guys don't even look like themselves. I don't know if they're fully healthy. I don't know if, it's, the 2022 vibes are really taking over the 2023 vibes, where it just seemed like nothing's coming together. It's, and they built such a clear picture heading into the season. And now I just have no grasp on what the picture is, what the identity is. We were going to be, the second half of 2023 Rams, mauling offensive line, big dudes, pushing guys around and gap scheme blocking, and Kyren Williams getting 30 touches and, 115 yards or whatever he averaged late in the season. And then, protecting Stafford enough that he can get the ball out. He's now the most hit quarterback. He's been up there the whole season, but he's now the most hit quarterback in the league, 48 hits on him. And an old man can only take so much abuse. And, we're now, what are we, six games left in the season? 7 games left.
Yeah, 7.
7 games left in this season. And
6.
we're still talking,
6.
still talking about identity. And, Tom Brady said, something interesting on the 49ers broadcast, which is, teams don't really find their identity until after Thanksgiving. So maybe it will all come together.
All right.
Maybe something will change.
Tom Brady break some bread together, I guess, and figure it out.
I guess. But yeah, that's my question is, what, the most expensive offense in football, who are we?
Yeah. Well, that's the real concerning thing is you have the most expensive offense and you do not have a good offense.
Yeah.
They're not efficient. It's not a good offense. I mean, there's been what? Can we think of in their 5 wins, the one game where I was like, this offense looks good was the Vikings game.
Yeah.
I can't really even think of another one where I was like, oh, that's a dominant offense. They've had good moments.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that and see what it was and what it looked like and who performed so well. Cause I mean, that one, I was shocked. I was worried that I was just totally misreading everything and they were going to do what they did to the Vikings, to the Eagles. And
yeah.
But I mean, like 6 games left. We got Saints, Bills, Niners, Jets coming up before they close out the season with Cardinals, Seahawks. And I'm looking at the Cardinals Seahawks as that's going to decide everything. I don't know what's going to happen with the Niners with their health. And I mean, it kind of seems like they should almost just shut it down and get themselves a top 15 pick.
Yeah.
But, what are your thoughts on the rest of the season?
Yeah. You look at that. I mean, it's nice to get the Saints next week. Should be a good get right game to get back to 500, 6-6. This is NFL. You never want to count a team out, and Derek Carr can be a very efficient quarterback. But I think that's a good get right game. That Bills game, I mean, the way they're playing, they're going to get blown out again. We'll talk about that then, and hopefully things improve. But based on last game, I don't have any confidence against the Bills. So then you drop back to 6-7. You mentioned Niners. I like it right now because the way the Niners are playing, how banged up they are. The Jets are a dumpster fire. I can get the Jets, but I could see them losing the last 2 against both the Cardinals and the Seahawks. I could see them winning the last 2. So this is a team that could easily finish with 10 wins. They could easily finish with 7 wins. And again, it comes down to we don't know who this team is. I think defensively, I won't say they have an identity skinny, but I think we know who they are. They're a young, fiery team. They're going to play hard. They've got a really good pass rush. We know they're not good against the run, and we know that they can get exposed, in man-to-man coverage, and especially the short stuff over the middle. But they can do enough against the non-elite teams to keep this team in games. Defensively, they're not going to be great. They'll have moments. They'll have lapses. But I think they can be good enough against these non-Eagles teams to give the offense a chance. But as you said, it comes down to the offense. Like, we don't know what this offense is. We know what they're trying to be, even though that's not what we think they should be because of the way they built the roster. So hopefully there's a nice dry wishbone off that turkey that McVay and Snead can break off and get a good wish in and figure out what they're going to do moving into this Saints week. And, we'll talk after Thanksgiving on Friday, previewing that game. But I think regardless, they win that game. I think they still have enough talent. They're too prideful of a team to getting blown out to then come out and lay another egg. I think they'll play well. But more importantly, I hope we see, and you really said it perfectly. Like, I hope they create an offensive identity that they stick to for the rest of the season. That doesn't mean like shove it down people's throats like they're doing now with this identity that's not working, but at least figure out what you want to do and stick to it. Like, if you want to run the ball and Kyren Williams fumbles, that's why you drafted Blake Corum. That's why you have Ronnie Rivers as RB2, who you said, like, Ronnie Rivers isn't getting carries either. So you didn't construct this team to be Kyren Williams or bust. Even though I'd still give it to him because how much me and you think how good he is, but that's why you have other running backs on the roster. I mean, look at all these other teams. Like, they run other backs. You don't just have to you drafted Blake Corum to be Kyren Williams 2.0. If he's not there yet in blocking, I totally get that. He might be a liability in pass coverage. That doesn't mean he can't get 5 to 7 carries a game. You think you're going to give too much to the defense? They'll know if he's out there that you're running the football. The defense already knows what you're doing because you don't run the football. So what is it going to hurt if you play your cards too close to your vest or whatever? So hopefully we learn that in the Saints game.
yeah, just you guys just go back and watch some of those late games with Kyren Williams. I mean, it looked so different and it felt so much better.
Yeah.
And they're not that different of a team that they can't pull that off again. And it's just frustrating. It's maddening to know. I think that Kyren Williams is of the caliber of running back. That's a Derrick Henry. That's a Christian McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley. I think he's probably a step down. But look what he was doing last year.
Yeah,
with Kevin Dotson and
Brian Allen was the center last year.
Rob
right?
Havenstein.
Or no, Coleman Shelton.
Coleman Shelton. Yeah. And you go look at what Coleman Shelton is doing in Chicago. It's like he's having a terrible year, but can't we get that a little bit of that back? And yeah, it's frustrating to watch. But
I mean, the NFC and the NFC West is still wide open. This team can absolutely still do a lot. I mean, they have everything in front of them. We say it after every loss because they do. If they're sitting at 5-6. They just need to show that they're making that step to do that. And again, I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but at this point, I don't think they're a contender unless they really shift things. And health doesn't matter. I mean, they're pretty healthy right now. So people can't keep making the excuse of like, oh, they're so injured. Like, look around the league. They're actually now one of the healthiest teams in the league when you look around the league, especially in their division. Look at their division. They're way healthier than, for sure, the Niners, and they're probably healthier than both the Cardinals and Seahawks right now too. So no more excuses for health. This is now a team that's fairly healthy and has to get right and do what they set out to do. And, if they can get this thing humming, then they can maybe potentially be a contender. But right now, I think they can still be a playoff team, which is crazy based on if anyone's listening to the 36 minutes, or we'll call it 32 minutes because we rambled for the first, 4 minutes of the show. It sounds very much like this team is terrible. They're not. I think it's just because the expectation of where they could be based on what they built in the offseason is just not meeting that mark. So hopefully against the Saints, Skinny, we'll see some clarity on what this specifically offense. Because again, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think we know what the defense is. Like, it's not going to be great. We said in July, like, hey, if this can be a top 20 defense, like, cool, they have a shot. That's all they need to be, top 20.
Yeah,
and I think that's what they are.
Yeah, Jared Verse is a revelation. He's going to be defensive player of the year probably, depending on what happens with Conan Mitchell down the stretch and what happens with him down the stretch as well. But they're surprisingly better. I can pick apart flaws. They kind of Verse has kind of disappeared over the last few weeks in the second halves of these games. But this is you can tell what your values are by how you spend your money. Look how the Rams are spending their salary cap. All offense. They have the bottom ranked defense, their bottom priced defense, and the most expensive offense. And the return on investment, not working. Yeah. If I was Sean McVay's boss, I'd be calling him into my office saying, "Listen."
And then okay, last thing I'll say, you look at a team like the Chargers, who lost last night to Baltimore, but I think in year one of Harbaugh at 7-4 has been a good team. You saw what they did in the offseason and you knew what kind of football team they're going to be. They did not invest in receivers at all. They went, re-signing offensive linemen, drafting tough guys on defense and building that defensive front and bringing in running backs so they could run the football. Like, you knew, and we always said, like, we didn't talk on this show. We're like, I don't know if I agree with it. You have Justin Herbert, and I still don't think I agree with it at all, but you knew that's what they were going to be. That's what they are. They're a run-first team that's smash mouth, that's going to grind it out, and they can use some of Herbert's heroics if needed throughout the game. The Rams in this offseason, built a roster similar to that. Like, okay, they beefed up the offensive line. They drafted another running back. They've got great blocking receivers. They brought in a blocking tight end in Colby Parkinson. Like, this is going to be an offense that's going to try to be that smash mouth, bring your lunch pail to work. And they just haven't at all. So that's, I think, where if you look around the league, and I think as a fan, a lot of people, not just maybe we do too, but you get honed in on your team and you just focus on that. But if you look around the league, look at other teams and say, okay, what's their identity? What did they build in the offseason, and are they doing that? And that's not to say you shouldn't make adjustments if it's not working. That's what good teams do, is hey, we got to adjust and shift. But if you built something to be something and then never even gave it a shot and then just reverted back to what you were in, 2018 with Jared Goff as this great 11 personnel type team that's going to air it out all over the field, then you just wasted an entire offseason. So that's all we're kind of saying.
Yeah. I was saying 2022 vibes. This season, I think, has 2018 vibes. I think that's where this is how that's feeling, where it's just like you went into the season thinking Maserati, you come out in a Ford Escort, Yeah. And I mean,
which, hey, Ford Escorts are great cars, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl with them.
That was my first car. It was a real lunch pail carrier, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I had a Ford Escort was my second car. I had 2 Ford Escorts. They don't even make them anymore. It's like a relic.
Man,
if only. Do you think the Ford Escort could be the next like Tour de Supra, where everyone's like, "Ooh, we're gonna start bringing back and making them cool race cars"? Probably not.
It's funny to say that, because I always thought, like, if I ever like got like ridiculously wealthy somehow, I would like go out and find my car and then just like have the exterior just be like its old junky like dented self, and then just like have the interior just like totally like rotted out. But conversation for a different day. Yeah, I think 2019. That's what this feels like. They missed the playoffs that year. They were winning. They were a winning football team that year.
Yeah, 9-7.
They could be the 4 seed. We see it every year, but if they win this division, they'll be the 4 seed.
Yeah.
They could actually be the 3 seed depending on what happens in the South.
Yeah. But that's actually, and we'll end with this, that's actually a much better yearly comparison as 2019, because that year I think was frustrating, because some weeks you're like, all right, this team can get, because 2018 was their Super Bowl year, obviously, when they lost the Patriots. Like, so there were some games where it's like, yes, this team looks like a team that can get back. And there were some games like when they went down to Miami and Jared Goff had 4 turnovers by himself and they got routed out there, where you're like, what is going on here? You can't read a cover 0. Like, what are we doing here? So this is what this team feels like. We're just like, one week you're like, all right, we're back. And the next week you're like, nope, like we're not that good. So, but anyway, hope everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving. Sorry, I know that was more kind of like ranting about this team. This team still has everything in front of them. And we'll talk Friday previewing the Saints game, because I think that's a 100% winnable game, a game the Rams should go get. But have a great Thanksgiving. Skinny, have a very good Thanksgiving. Next year, 2025 LAFB Turkey Bowl, it's going down. It's happening. But for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyer. Everyone have a great time. Friends and family, be safe. Enjoy that turkey. Everyone enjoy your Thanksgiving traditions. We'd love to hear some of them. Drop them in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter at Ryan Dyer at LAFB, at RL Anderson LAFB, or at LAFB Network. And obviously, LAFBnetwork.com is where you can get all of our Rams content for everything we do. So thank you all. Be well, be safe, be blessed. Talk to you all at the end of the week.